Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in this world, because we are seen around the world. I'm Captain Bill Gustin, the oldest guy in the room, and welcome to this month's Humpday Hangout. We're going to discuss strip shopping centers, strip malls, taxpayers, if you will, that can be one story. They can have basements, and they can have residential occupancies above them. Before we begin, I want to thank our sponsor, that is keyfire.com. While we're on the subject of strip shopping centers, a deadly combination for fire is you hook up 2.5-inch key combat ready hose with one of the very capable portable master stream devices. I don't want to name any name brands here. They're all good as far as I'm concerned. With one single 2.5-inch inlet, and put a hurting on that fire from a flanking position, and then move on to a smaller size line, say put a 2.5-inch nozzle on that. There's one of the reasons that departments are reluctant to use 2.5-inch hoses. It's too hard to maneuver, or the nozzle reaction is too much. Well, you can take care of your maneuverability problems by having a high quality, high-end hose like Key Combat Ready. There's no better hose on the market. That's what my company uses, both 1.5 and 2.5-inch hose, and it's the best for durability and heat resistance, abrasion resistance, has remarkable flow capabilities in terms of minimal friction loss. Now, I can tell you right now, it doesn't come cheap. You're paying for the best hose in the world, you'll get the best hose in the world. Don't go cheap on hose. Go cheap on something else. So I'm ready to rock and roll. I've got my Lucky PIV pressure reducing valve with me. I've got my Lucky Squad 9 from the 50s in Chicago. And myself, I entered the 1973 in the suburbs of Chicago. I was blessed to have a dad that was a lieutenant on the Chicago Fire Department, was my mentor. And that's who lit the fire in my belly to be a firefighter. So I am very lucky to be here today with an esteemed group of gentlemen. To Mike, I'm not sure, is the Venerable Sam Hittle from the Midland of the United States. Sam, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell a little bit about yourself.
Lieutenant, Wichita Fire, and like you said, just dead center of the Midwest. I'm fortunate to work for a good department. You know, we don't go to as much fire as I want, but we definitely get the experiences, and so I'm grateful to get to participate and share some of those today.
My dad.
Did we lose Bill? I think we might have lost Bill's connection. So, am I the only one, or did you guys also lose him? Okay. So, there he's back, but I'm not sure if he's there. We're having a tough time with your connection, if you can hear me, Bill. So, Clark, if you would like to, please introduce yourself.
Sir, Captain Dugan, thank you. Captain Clark Lamping from the Clark County Fire Department, Firehouse 11 on Las Vegas Boulevard. I've been on about 20 years now. Triple House, we got a truck, engine, and rescue company. Just got back from Hurricane Irma. We deployed, Nevada Task Force 1 deployed to Irma, where we staged in Georgia. We spent about 5 or 6 days in Air Force Base, Robbins Air Force Base outside of Atlanta, and then they sent us home. So that is... that's my history for this week.
Okay. All right. And my name is Mike Dugan, and I'm just glad and happy to be here with all of these great guys. And we'll be talking to you today about the strip mall fires and everything else. I retired as a captain from the FDNY. But I think before we do that, we got to go to something that's very, very current and very up to date. I would like to get Clark, if he would, just to tell us a little bit something about how he's doing and how his guys are doing, because you are less than a mile away from Mandalay Bay. I know I walked by your firehouse a couple of times when I was out there, And you're right on the strip there.
Yes, yeah, that's true. We are just less than a mile away, and our Engine 11 was actually returning from a call, driving past that scene as the shots started getting fired. Real heads up, Captain on Engine 11. He immediately recognized that it was gunfire. And some of the reports I'm reading, on a side note, is the majority of people here during an active shooter, they hear these pops and they automatically assume it's firecrackers and they do nothing about it. So I'm thinking, you know, personal policy now, if I'm at any kind of a venue with people and I hear what I think is firecrackers, I'm getting the hell out. I'm running because it's probably gunfire. They're not supposed to have fireworks at these events. So, but this captain immediately recognized that's gunfire. He called dispatch. Do you have any reports of gunfire right now? And dispatch said, no, we have no reports of, oh, hang on a second. Oh, yeah, we have a report. Oh, yeah, hang on. And then, boom, that's when the floodgates opened, hundreds of calls. So this heads-up captain immediately said, get the engine out of here, because he was right alongside of the venue. If you looked at the video and stuff, that venue is directly across the street from Mandalay Bay. It's on Las Vegas Boulevard. So for reference, I'm going to call Las Vegas Boulevard the Alpha side. There's another road that runs parallel to Las Vegas Boulevard. We're going to call that Charlie. Engine 11 was on the Charlie side. This heads-up captain immediately said, get out, because people started evacuating out of the Charlie side. Threw the engine reverse, got out of there, moved it back to a place where he knew he was not going to be overwhelmed, and he immediately started calling in resources and giving reports, and eventually the firemen got out and they started providing EMS. So real heads-up move there. Yeah, the shooting, this guy was extremely motivated. He was smart. He had money, and he'd been planning this for several years. So, you know, you face a shooter like that, it's not going to end well. This guy had cameras set up in the hotel rooms. He had so much training. He had so much planning and equipment going on. And we just keep learning about this stuff and how motivated he was. So it's difficult to combat an assailant like that. And the day before the shooting happened on Sunday, I'm on B platoon. B platoon was off. We were off on Sunday, so it was A platoon that was working that day. Saturday, the day before, we worked, and we drove that venue. Engine 11, we did a 360-degree around that venue. We identified our vehicular access points. We identified our pedestrian access points. And then we went in the facility. We walked the whole grounds from one side to the other, walked the grounds, and went into the medical tent, found out what was going on in the medical tent, where they were located, where they were staging. Then we went through to the command post. There's a police department command post on the property and another police department command post in a church parking lot, which is also on the Charlie side. So I poked my head in the command post for the police department. And I said, what is your plan specifically? This is the day before. What is your plan for an active shooter? And again, everything we've trained for across the country and all of the active shooters we had before, the active shooter's been in the crowd or in the building. Right? We've never trained for anything like this. We've never planned for anything like this. And the police officer, the sergeant in charge, said, all right, if we have an active shooter, we're going to shut down Las Vegas Boulevard because we already have traffic police on the boulevard. So they're going to get the call. They're going to shut down all vehicular traffic. We're going to open up all of the pedestrian gates on Las Vegas Boulevard side, and we're going to push everyone out onto Las Vegas Boulevard and have them escape like that. And that was the evacuation plan for the active shooter. And to quote Mike Tyson, right, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And then your plan goes out of the window. Well, man, we got punched in the face that night. For minutes, we had no idea where the gunfire was coming from. You've seen a lot of the videos and stuff. It's just unbelievable. It's still mind-boggling. At the end of the day, we eventually had 160 firefighters on scene, 14 chief's officers running the scene, countless police officers. FBI was there. Secret Service was down there. This is right after the incident. And we had carnage on unprecedented levels. At the end of the day, it was 58 people killed and close to 500 wounded. And one of the problems we were having was these people were getting hit and running. They had no idea where the gunfire was coming from. They just ran and started running. And so our scene, we've determined that emergency scene ended up being 1 square mile. 1 square mile. It included 10 hotels on Las Vegas Boulevard and the International Airport. The International Airport is on the Charlie side. There's a church, then there's a dirt lot, and then you're against the fence to McCarran Airport. People were so panicked, they ran right through that heavily fortified fence. They knocked the fence down. They went right over the fence, and they were running across the runways on the International Airport. So that scene expanded, and what was happening, people were running, been shot, they're running, and they just stop and die. They just stop and die in a desert lot. They just stop and die in a parking lot, in some bushes, behind a dumpster, sit behind a car to take cover, and then they just died. And so we were having, our code is 419 for a dead body. We're having 419s in hotels that are halfway down the strip, injuries halfway down the strip. So as people are running with gunfire, they're doing everything they can to just seek shelter. So they ran into the first hotel they found, which was the Tropicana Hotel. Ran to the Tropicana Hotel, security shows up, and they've got people in their lobby with gunshot wounds in the lobby. And they called 911 and said, hey, we've got gunshot victims at the Tropicana Hotel. This is so new, they had no idea about the shooting down the street. We've got gunshot victims in the Tropicana Hotel. That was relayed to dispatches. We have an active shooter at the Tropicana Hotel as well. And so now we have resources, we have police, we have fire heading from Tropicana Hotel. And that happened in 10 different hotels. Mandalay Bay, Luxor, Excalibur, New York Hotel, MGM Hotel, Monte Carlo Hotel, Paris, Bally's. This is where all these people were going, and this incident just kept expanding. At one point, we thought that we had 16 active shooters on Las Vegas Boulevard.
Can you tell us a little bit about the relationship with over the years, Metropolitan?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Years ago, we realized, not me, but we as in the Clark County Fire Department and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, we call them Metro, they realized that it's only a matter of time before this kind of stuff hits Las Vegas. And at that point, our fire chief and the sheriff of the police department came together and they said, you know what, we need to do better. We need to have some kind of a communication plan, specifically what happened in Columbine, where all the EMS providers are standing on the curb for 3 hours and no one's getting medical aid provided to them. And they started doing this research on all these active shooter events and what was going on and why were these people dying. And they formulated a plan that we call it rescue task forces, or hostile MCIs. And well, let me back up for a second. First of all, I don't know about your jurisdiction, but the police department, they don't use ICS at all. And it is the most mind-boggling thing to me. I asked the police department, I said, what do you guys do? We show up and we go to work. That's what they said. And I said, hey, so did we in 1950. That's how we fought fires. We just show up and go to work and do what we think needs to be done. Well, so the fire chief said, hey, if we're going to operate together, we have to be somewhat on the same page. This thing called ICS. And the police department originally said, yeah, we're not sure about that. We don't want anything to do with that. And then gradually we started working our way into this. And believe it or not, that the police actually listened to the fire department, and the firefighters said, you need to be on board with this ICS, and this is how we're going to run operations. And they listened, and they listened. And now Clark County firefighters go to the Metro Police Department's Recruit Academy, and they teach ICS to the police. We have uniformed firefighters in the Metro Police Academy, and we teach firefighters. And I tell that across the country, and I see firefighters, they have this look on their face. You're even allowed at the police academy? You're even allowed at a police station? And I cannot believe, the more research I do, how much animosity there's between fire and police. And the reason we were so successful, the number one reason we were so successful on Saturday night or Sunday night, was because of the relationship with the police. So we designed a program that the police department shows up, and they have certain officers on every shift that are trained, tactical trained, and they have armor in their car, they have Kevlar helmets, Kevlar vests, and they have assault rifles in their vehicles. They show up, they gear up, and they immediately go in. They immediately go in after the scene. They all have a predetermined staging point, and that's how they go after the assailant. The next group of people in, they stage, the next group of police stage in 4 to 6 police officers with this tactical gear, and then firefighters show up, Clark County firefighters show up. We also have tactical gear. We have level 4 tactical vests, and we have level 3 Kevlar helmets. We show up and we pair with this police force. Now we become a tactical rescue group, and we immediately go into this building, and we follow the first one. We're in the hot zone, and we enter a room. This is the way we were trained, right? Because everything we've done before was always in buildings and in nightclubs, stuff like that. So we would enter a room. The police would immediately create a perimeter for us, and firefighters would go in, and we would triage all the people in that room we found, and we'd notify a transfer team how many live, how many dead we had in that room. And that's all that team would do, is triage. Then we would move to the next room. The whole police would surround us, and we would go into the next room or to the next area of the building. And again, every time we found patients, the police would create a perimeter around that building for us to work in, and then we would go in and assess patients. In the meantime, we have transfer teams showing up now. They're also in their ballistic gear, and they were going in, and they just grab and go. They grab anyone who's viable, and they drag them out of the building. Then we have the actual treatment teams are outside, and then transport's going to be out in the parking lot. And that's what went on inside the fairgrounds, right? Again, we had no idea where bullets were coming from, and these guys were reporting they were seeing bullets hit the ground around them. They were hearing bullets whizzing through the air as they are transferring patients. And these tactical teams also, those are the teams that went all up and down Las Vegas Boulevard, and they're the ones that had to clear every single hotel that they had a report of an active shooter at. So resources were stretched completely thin. And on the actual fairgrounds, they said it was a battleground. It was an absolute battleground, like these movies you see of Vietnam and these World War II movies, where they're just grabbing people and dragging them out and you can see people getting shot around them. You can dragging right past people, dead on scene, heads blown off, stuff like that, and they're just dragging these people out. Still have no idea where the shooter is. No idea, and he's still actively firing. So that's. Go ahead, Bill. Cap.
Horrible as it was, I can say this being a firefighter. I don't think there's a firefighter in this country or in this world that doesn't feel a tremendous sense of pride about the job and the heroism played as firefighters during this horrible attack. And you were willing to take a bullet. And as a result, you were willing to take a bullet. You were not standing by and waiting until the scene was clear, because people were dying. And because of your efforts, think of the dozens and dozens of people that are alive today because of the direct actions of the firefighters of the Clark County Fire Department. You have every reason to be very, very proud of your Clark County Fire Department.
And Cap, you're not going to find anyone in the American Fire Service that's more proud than myself. I cannot believe the work we've done, and the stuff that you're hearing in the media. That's just scratching the surface. There are so many examples of guys down there working hard, and even off-duty guys. There was 12 off-duty firefighters at the concert, and the way they performed too, with no tactical gear on. No tactical gear. They immediately went to work. These men were there with their wives, their girlfriends, their families, little kids, and these men grabbed their families, ran out, got their families to safety, turned around, put their wife in a car, turned around and went right back in with no police support, no EMS equipment, no tactical coverage, and they went in and started taking care of people. One guy took his belt off. He had a guy with a leg injury, grabbed this guy, removed his own belt, put his belt as a tourniquet around this guy, and drug him to the medical tent. Dropped him off the medical tent, immediately turned back around, went to work. There was another guy. He was a Henderson Fire Department, Henderson firefighter. He was there with his brother. His brother was shot in the chest. So he grabbed his brother, drug his brother out to the ambulance, threw his brother in the ambulance. His brother had a critical chest injury, and this Henderson firefighter loaded his brother into the back of an ambulance, and instead of going to the hospital with his brother, he closed the ambulance door, and he turned around and went right back to work. And he said, I thought it was the last time I would ever see my brother. But he still turned around, and he went back to work inside the venue. And there's multiple stories like that, on-duty, off-duty guys. The heroism and the courage these guys displayed was unprecedented, absolutely unprecedented.
Clark, what kind of advice would you have for jurisdictions, both police, fire department, emergency medical services, for this type of incident? I mean, not exactly the same type, because it may never happen again, but a mass shooting incident. How do you bring police departments, fire departments up to speed to increase their capability for active shooter incidents, knowing what you know now? Knowing what you knew in the past because of the relationship you have with the police.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to start at the top. It has to start at the top, and you have to get buy-in from the people. And the buy-in is created when people realize this is a threat. This could happen. And when you see what happened in Colorado, Aurora, Colorado, when you see what happened in Columbine, and I'm not criticizing any of the departments, but the failure to get quality EMS support to those injured people quickly, how many lives that costs. And once you get people to realize that this is what has to be done if we're going to save lives in our jurisdiction, do you agree, police chief? Do you agree, fire chief? Then we have to work from there, and it's the fire chief and the police chief's job is to get the membership on board and realize this is how we're going to save lives. All right, this is our mission statement. It doesn't matter how we accomplish our mission statement, but we need to be on this page, and we need to have this working relationship. We need to be talking the same language. That's another problem we had. You know, the police use 4 code still. We try to use simple language on the radio, so we had to tell the police, you can't be calling out numbers. We're not going to know what you said. So the communication is huge. We set up what we call a MAC, an MACC, a multi-agency command center, where administration from the fire department, administration from the police department's in there, administration from the facility, Mandalay Bay, chief of security from Mandalay Bay was in there. He was telling people where to go, where the stairwells are. It's a combined effort, and no one is going to be successful unless everybody is on board and the plan is communicated and the plan is trained on. And what we learned in Clark County, not just a plan like this, but we're going to have to reevaluate and make all kinds of new plans. Because when I stood in that command post on Saturday afternoon, I thought, that sounds like a pretty good plan. That sounds like a pretty good plan for a mass shooter. We'll get everybody out on Las Vegas Boulevard. Police will come in from the Charlie side, and they will try to isolate, neutralize that active shooter. I was in agreement. And the whole time, what I can't get out of my head on Saturday afternoon when we were walking at fairgrounds, there is no doubt in my mind that that son of a bitch was in that hotel room, and he was looking down on us, and he was watching what we were doing, and he was watching them set up that. This was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The concert didn't start till 4. So they didn't even open the gates yet, and there's no doubt in my mind that that lunatic was watching us walk those grounds and take measurements and look at stuff and evaluate exits and entrances and stuff like that. That makes the hair on my neck stand up. Absolutely. That is disturbing.
Yeah. As terrible as it is, again, a proud moment for you, for your department, and for the fire service worldwide. You operated in the greatest spirit and in the proudest traditions of the fire service.
Yeah.
And what you did were rescues, not just removals, not just treatments, but rescues. And what I mean by a rescue is you're putting yourself at risk to save somebody else's life. And there are hundreds of cases of that that your firefighters perform. So again, you have every reason to be very, very proud. Sam and Mike Dugan, do you have any questions for Clark before we move on? And Clark, go ahead, sir.
Clark, my question is on the tactical gear, because we're doing it now in the FDNY, the Kevlar helmets and the tactical vests, and the guys, of course, wear their bunker pants. So that's how they're identified as firemen and not police. It says fire on a tactical, but you could never tell the difference. But does every company in Clark County get that, or only the places near the strip, the places where they think the act, or is it now given to every company? And has your opinion of what you have done changed on that since this incident?
Yes, Captain Dugan. Every firefighter on duty has tactical gear. Every unit has 4 vests, 4 helmets on it. Every single one of them. So, and that was purchased from a grant. And I understand that not just Clark County fires, but all firefighters in the Las Vegas Valley. You know, we have 4 departments. You have City of Las Vegas, City of North Las Vegas, City of Henderson, and Clark County. It's my understanding that every single fire department has tactical gear on their units now. So, and yeah, we trained on it. We went through the motions, stuff like that. And, we take the training a lot more serious now. I always liked the plan, and the plan to get to where we got to now, that's been 10 years in the making. Plan A, all right, here's plan A, let's train on plan A. Nope, didn't go right, cops don't like it, firemen don't like it. Plan B, plan C, I think we are all the way to like plan K or something like this now, and finally, plan K is working for what we have right now. It's going to evolve later now to what we have, but, you know, the first one out of the gate, you can't just show, here's our new plan, and we're going to ram it down your throat. They started a plan, they trained on it, and they listened to the people who were on the ground. They listened to the police officers with the guns in their hand, and they listened to firefighters with the medical equipment. They said, we can't do it like this. This is not going to work. All right, come back. Tell us what you think will work. plan B, all right? And that's what the administration did. Again, that's why we're so successful, because the administration is not so egotistical and arrogant that they feel that they have everything to say and everything, that they know everything. It's the administration listened to the guys on the ground who are making the decisions, and they listened to what they said, and they changed the plan according to what they wanted.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant that they did, and I just think that's phenomenal, because again, it's the end user who's doing this and putting their lives at risk in this tactical gear. You know, it's the new world order, unfortunately, and I think a lot of departments are going to this. But now having an idea with the police and the fire and the training them together as to what they're going to do and everything else, because, you know, like you said, Columbine. Now, unfortunately, Las Vegas is there, the Mandalay Bay. Sandy Hook, whatever else. You can continue going on and on and on about these things. But what is your plan? Because you have to come up with some idea of how your department is going to handle this.
Sam, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say that I really hope that your department can focus on what you guys did, because you guys really did do a phenomenal job with something that's unprecedented. I know that they're going to have a tough road ahead, questioning their actions, what could have been done. So I really hope that they're able to focus on what they did, because it really was phenomenal. And that's a very difficult thing to absorb. And we know that, you know, while it's 15 minutes of interest for a lot of the nation and the world, it's going to take you guys years to process all of that. So we really do care about that.
Thank you, Sam. And not just the firefighters that responded. Every day, every single day at Station 11, the doorbell rings constantly, and these people are showing up. And they're I remember the first 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning, this couple is at my door at the fire station, and they're completely distraught. They're about 20 years old, and this couple looks completely distraught. And we open up the door, and this girl is holding a teddy bear and a chicken sandwich. And she said, "We just want to thank you and the police for saving our lives." And I just looked at this girl in the eyes, and I realized this is far from over. Not just for the fire department, this is far from over from the public. These people were they had no idea what to do. They had no idea where to go. They were completely overwhelmed and distraught. We put this young couple in the kitchen. We sat them down. We gave them a cup of coffee, and we let these people talk for an hour. And they were there. They were there. They ran out, and they saw people being killed. They heard bullets, and like a young couple. And we talked to these people for an hour, and we realized then that these people are going to need our help. And our mission statement states that we're there to provide help, not just bandage wounds, not just put water on fire, but people in our community are hurting. And we were doing emotional first aid for people. And over the course of this past 2 weeks, we've had hundreds and hundreds of people come by, ring the doorbell, and they want to thank you. They want to bring you lunch. Here's lunch, thank you. And then you sit down, you start talking to them, and you realize these people are hurting too. So we have a policy at Station 11. As soon as you walk in the door, everybody gets a hug. As cheesy as that sounds, I know a bunch of macho firemen hugging other men, hugging police officers from other jurisdictions. You walk in the door and you get a hug, and a full hug with a warm embrace, and that lets this person know we are here from you. We're not too cool to listen to you. We're not too macho. We are here from you. And you treat people like that, and they immediately start opening up. They immediately start talking. They start crying. I've met hundreds of people, 100 church groups. We have whole church groups come. They want to pray with us. So these 6 women come to the kitchen table, call everyone in the kitchen. We've never told anybody no. We've never turned anybody away from the fire station. We've never told anyone we don't want the food. Thank you, but we're full. And we are so full of food at the fire station, we're hiding food. So the people who are bringing food don't know that we already had lunch bought for us. And we've never turned anyone down. This church group comes up. I say, everyone in the fire station, come to the kitchen. We all held hands, and these women started praying for us, and they just start crying and crying and crying. And that's how they are healing. We are helping these people heal by listening to them and giving them a cup of coffee. And it's sometimes it's all we can do, right? I wasn't there. I didn't patch any wounds. All right. But this is what I'm doing to help my community now. And this is what the different platoons are doing and will continue to do. And like you said, Sam, I don't know how long this is going to last, but it's definitely not receding yet. So
I hear you, Clark. I hear you. And To go from another sore subject, as we speak right now, there's a disaster occurring in our country right now. Our dear friends, one of our panelists, and that's Daryl Liggins, a fighter in lives in that Northern California area that is being ravaged by wildfires. And I haven't heard from Daryl. We haven't heard from Daryl. He may be deployed. His house may be endangered. Don't know. Prayers are with you, Daryl, if you're watching this or watching the archived version. Thank you. And this is a kind of a crisis for the fire service. Hurricanes with the wildfire fashion in the highest fashion. The fire service has responded, and they will continue to respond. I want to thank our sponsor also, Key Hose, keyfire.com. It is the very best. It's not the cheapest, but their Key Combat Ready is the finest hose. If you are thinking about replacing or acquiring more hose for your department, you cannot do better than Key. Get some of it from a vendor, try to kink it, and you'll find out that you won't. Now, before we started, we meet, the panelists meet, and people were wondering why my face is redder than the backside of a baboon, which means it's red. Well, I spent this weekend at the Fort Lauderdale Fire Expo teaming up with Sprinklermatic, which is a fire suppression system contractor. And we offered a class. I wasn't the only one. Aaron Fields was there for Nozzle Forward, Tim Klett from the FDNY, Mike Champo. And we were there for this regional conference. And my part in it was to explain the workings of a fire pump, standpipe, sprinkler system. And a hands-on component was how to shut down isolation or floor control valves. So Shannon, if you could run those two videos of us activating the sprinkler heads, it's quite a contrast because we set off quite a few heads, either broke the glass bulb to allow them to flow, and also I actually used a torch, a MAP gas torch, a small MAP gas torch. And if I'll just keep talking, Shannon, until you can rig up those videos. If we can't do it, that's fine. But I want to give a shout out to Sprinklermatic. There's every place in downtown Miami, throughout Miami-Dade County, Broward County, which is the Fort Lauderdale area, and Palm Beach County, there's construction cranes. There's a building boom of high-rise buildings, and Sprinklermatic is installing most of those systems. And they partnered with the fire service, and they've really gone the extra mile to educate firefighters in fire suppression systems. They brought in a diesel fire pump and hooked it up to a hydrant and with a controller, and it was just basically they brought a building's fire pump to the training site. So you can run that, Shannon. If it doesn't work, that's okay. Okay, give me a minute. All right, I'm just going to keep talking about Sprinklermatic because they're a great company, and they yes, sir.
Can I give a shout out also? I would like to shout out.
Oh, perfect time. Perfect time. Yeah.
Jack Murphy, the Fire Safety Directors Association of Greater New York Area, is having a symposium on November 8th. It's a high-rise building emergency preparedness, all hazards threats. There's going to be opening remarks by the FDNY Chief of Department, Jimmy Leonard. Dr. Dennis O'Neill is the keynote speaker. The guest speakers are Joe Pfeiffer, the Assistant Chief for Counterterrorism and Emergency Preparedness, doing a role when fire is used as a weapon. And Ralph Gonzalez, a detective, New York City Police Department counterterrorism, is also going to do another one that's kind of scary, drones as a weapon. And then Graham Ellis, an assistant commissioner from the London Fire Brigade is going to do active shooters and the high-rise challenges. This will be at the J.P. Morgan Chase building on 383 Madison Avenue between 46th and 47th on November 8th. The registration opens at 8 and the classes begin at 9 a.m. This is a fundraiser. All of the money goes to the New York Firefighters Burn Center, and this is a great thing. I will be there. I hope to see any of you in the New York and metropolitan area at this. Again, this is a great thing, and there's going to be a lot of great information here.
You know, I'm proud to know Jack Murphy. I'm proud to know Jack and to have him as my friend, and I don't think that there's anybody in our industry, in our profession, that knows more about commercial high-rise safety than Jack Murphy. I also want to give a shout out to one of our brothers north of the border. That would be James Johnson, firefighter, fire officer in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Tonight at 7:30 Eastern Time, he will be hosting a fire engineering radio talk show entitled The Built Environment, with a very special and esteemed guest, Chief Vincent Dunn. I don't know how you winged it. I don't know how you winged it, James. You get Chief Dunn, but it was quite an accomplishment to have a man of that stature, to have such a giant in the fire service be on your radio show. So for all of you, that would be 7:30 p.m. tonight for the Built Environment. It'll be a fire engineering talk show. Okay, Shannon, it's not that important if we don't show the videos. We've got plenty of other things that we need to talk about.
All right, go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
so not a problem, not a problem. Okay, just as soon as you're done with this webcast, Shannon, just meet security. They will escort you out of the building, but not a problem, not a problem, okay?
Take your Rolodex with you.
Okay, let me tell you what the videos were. We started off with a 13R residential sidewall sprinkler head. It's like a squirt gun. Okay, your 13R system, sprinkler system, is a life safety system. The R is for residential. According to Glenn Corbett, the R stands for roulette, because when you depend on a 13R system to protect your building, you're playing Russian roulette, because there's no sprinklers in the void spaces. The attics, the truss loft in between the ceiling and the floor below, or the floor above, I should say, with parallel cord floor trusses. So, we'd set this thing off, and it'd be a moderate amount of spray, and then we put in an ESFR head, early suppression, fast response. It's like having a firefighter with a 100-gallon-a-minute booster line at the ceiling every 10 feet. These things flow so much and are so beautifully designed as far as their pattern that in many cases you do not have to install sprinklers in your storage racks. They're that good. And so I used a little MAP gas torch and set one of these bad boys off, and I disappeared in the spray. So if we don't get it on, we'll put it on the website or something like that. Well, in the last 20 minutes or so, I want to talk a little bit about strip shopping centers. And I particularly want to ask Mike, because Mike, you were not here last month. And I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, that the FDNY, when you go into a commercial, that you must use 2.5-inch hose. Is that correct?
Correct.
I mean, even if it's a hot dog stand.
A commercial structure is a 2.5-inch. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You stretch 1 3/4, the engine company officer is going to get an earful.
Okay. And I suppose, Mike, we've talked about it in previous situations that, when the department makes a hard and fast rule like that, like I think Washington, D.C. is a department that regardless of where the fire is in a building, they check the basement. Obviously, something terrible happened at some point in their history where they said, hey, we're going to check the basement. Doesn't matter if the fire is on the 22nd floor. Is it conceivable you could have a basement fire with a fire on the 22nd floor? Yes. Garbage chute, bust duct from an electrical panel. So, Mike, and of course, if you're a student of the fire service, which everybody here is watching, I suppose the most infamous taxpayer fire would have to be the 23rd Street collapse. And we really did not discuss the basement fire issue last month, Mike. So if you could just bring that to the table and some of the time we've got left, talk about how does the Fdny identify buildings with basements other than pre-fire planning?
Normally it's pre-fire planning, normally. But we also go in and do inspections. We get building inspection, BI. We do inspection 3 times a week in the FDNY. You go out to the different buildings, and your commercials get done a lot more than your residentials because of the changes in the commercials. So we're going to go in there and find out about the basements. We're going to look at for the basements. We're going to look at the sidewalk for sidewalk vaults to see if there's a vault underneath there. Again, it's all part of knowing your response area. Okay, and if we find anything in a basement that is not normal, the buildings are built on a slab and they have dug out a basement in the store and it's only accessed through the interior of the store. There's no, we put it in our computer information dispatch system, SIDS. We put in the information and now it prints up every time that address is printed up. It prints out there is a basement in this building. And it prints out exactly what is in there. So I think it's very, very, very important that when you see something, you say something, document it. You know, you go into these buildings, you go to fires, statistically speaking, you go to fires in buildings that they didn't expect basements, where they found basements, and find out what happened. I always like to talk about the Mary Pang fire in Seattle, where they didn't think there was a basement in that building. And the probie saw smoke coming through the sidewalk, but didn't say anything because his officer was as old as you and I are, Bill, and was chewing a cigar and said, listen, I don't want to hear from you, kid, until you got 1.5 years on a job. So he didn't say anything, and nobody realized there was a basement. They went in and there was a collapse, and it was a large loss of life in Seattle. So again, indications, having people say something, but pre-planning is the best way to do it, and inspecting your buildings, knowing your response area.
I hear you. Shannon, are we ready? I think we've got a collaborative effort here between Shannon and, okay, here we go. Can we enlarge that? We have the video. And this is actually the second one. That's okay. Let's play it anyway.
That's as big as I can get it. But one of the things you may have to, if you're going to talk, you may have to have guys actually go to that tile with the video and click it so it'll come up as a full screen.
Just play the video and talk.
Yeah, because if you're talking, it'll try to pull up your screen. So
okay, I'm going to mute. I'm going to mute. Okay.
All right.
I will mute.
Click on Sam Hittle's picture, and then that video come up full screen.
All right, you guys ready?
That was a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. So I got a facial, and it made me look years younger, almost like I had cold cream on my face. Sam, thank you very much for, I don't know how you did it. I guess that means you're a techno geek or something like that. But
Gustin, you don't look any younger.
What does that mean, Bill? You don't have to take a shower now till November?
Oh yeah, man. That was a deep cleaning. Look at this. I've never been so clean. Yeah, but it was a grind because I was soaking wet for like at least 12 hours. In fact, I At the end of the day, the second day, I was pretty happy the conference was over, but we had, because it was such a grind. And the weather was not cooperative. It was extremely hot and humid. But we had firefighters from Canada, from Santiago, Chile, and a lot of locals from Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties, and also on the West Coast, the Tampa area as well. So the brothers and sisters got together for some for training, just as a regional conference. And I was proud to be a part of it. And again, thanks again so very much for Sprinkler-Matic bringing their fire pump, their valves, and their sprinklers to the drill site. Clark, can we run through some of your slides, because you have a specific problem specific to the Las Vegas area? I mean, I was appalled when I came out there to teach for your department and the Terry Farrell Foundation, when I found out that you could dig your fingers into the what I call the gingerbread or facade ornamentation of a commercial strip shopping center and rip handfuls of polystyrene foam off in my fingers. Could you explain the problems that you encounter, and maybe Shannon could show some of the pictures? Okay,
yes.
That's oh, okay. Let's see if we can watch. Let's watch this video. This is going to be the other one.
Okay, again, you might have to click my tile.
That was great. You know, I've been a firefighter for 44 years. I've never seen a sprinkler head activate right there and then like that. And now that was a 13R head. And if you take a look at that in comparison to the flow you got from an EFSR, it's you can see that not all sprinklers flow the same amount of water. They're not all designed for the same commodity class, fuel load, heat release rate. Therefore, any firefighter that says, don't worry about that Home Depot, don't worry about that 55-story high-rise building, we'll never have a serious fire in it because there's sprinklers in the building, has never fought a nasty, dangerous fire in a sprinklered building. You have to have the sun, the moon, and the stars all line up in order for sprinklers to work correctly. They have to be designed correctly, they have to be spaced correctly, and they have to be maintained correctly. A lot can go wrong with sprinklers, and I'm sure we could have a class, we could have a Google Hangout, fellas. Every one of us could talk about serious fires in sprinklered buildings. In fact, it ought to be one of our next subjects. Clark, would you speak on your particular? No, I don't think that's going to get it there. You look like Mr. Peanut with that.
Mr. Monopoly. Mr. Monopoly.
Oh, it's Monopoly. Yeah, very nice. Very nice.
My bad.
Here, man.
That's great. That's great. That was beautiful, man.
All right. The war is on.
Off my Christmas list. Jesus Christ, he's fast. It would take me goddamn 3 weeks to come up with something like that.
That's what I love about this. We can cover a lot of subjects and learn from each other, and we can still have a good time and have a laugh. And that's the beautiful thing about you guys. Clark, you want to talk a little bit about your plastic foam facades that you experienced there in Clark County?
Yes.
Awesome.
If you click on this picture that Shannon showed us here, these are pictures from a friend of mine, Chief Ed Hatfield. He's out of Firetown training. And what we're looking at here, this is we call this a wall cap. And a lot of times these wall caps are simply polystyrene foam that are sprayed with a 1/16 inch of stucco. And these products, the specific picture you're looking at, they take this 4x4 piece of polystyrene foam and they glue it onto the top ledge of the wall of a concrete tilt-up or a wood frame to they just try to dress up the concrete tilt-up a little bit. So they glue this 4x4 piece of polystyrene foam on the top edge there, and then that side with the profile that has a 4x4 channel cut into it, and they simply glue that piece of foam right onto the side of that. And it is so cheap and so lightweight, that stuff you see hanging out there, that's actually duct tape. So they simply duct tape this to the side of the building until that glue dries. Now that's one of the methods. Another one, they just simply glue it onto the side of the building. If you go through a couple of these slides, please, Shannon, you'll see that the one thing that scares the daylights out of me as a truck company, that's that same wall after it's finished, all right? You see where the parapet is, you see where the bearing wall is, all right? That bearing wall is only about 8 inches. So you're looking at about 36 inches of nothing but polystyrene foam with a 16 inch of stucco on it that is glued to the side of that building. How are we going to access that in a truck? How are we going to access the roof of that building? All right, we'd better know what we are standing on before we get on that. You take you think that little piece of styrofoam glued on there is going to hold a 325-pound fireman in full gear with saws and hooks on his back? Absolutely not. Now show me another picture, please, Shannon. Yeah, here's another side of the profile, how they simply scratch that with the stucco and glue it on. All right, another picture, please, Shannon. This is one in my jurisdiction. We actually did this as a brand new building, and this one fortunately has a little piece of OSB on it. But look at the size of that parapet. How are we going to access that? So we better be very, very careful of how we exit the bucket. If we're going to use the bucket, can we put the bucket over, make sure we're on a load-bearing wall, and make sure we're stepping on the load-bearing wall? All right, because this will send you. If you step on this, it will send you. Show me another picture, please, Shannon. That's the underside of that parapet we were just talking about, or that wall cap we were just talking about. Looks pretty fancy, doesn't it? But that is nothing more than polystyrene foam glued to the side of a building. All right, next picture, please. All right, this is a typical strip mall we have in my jurisdiction. All right, you see that decorative edge? Not only the decorative edge on the roof, on the wall cap, but that one down the middle of it. That is all polystyrene foam parapet as well. And any kind of fire you have inside that window falls down on that ledge, that will go into that parapet and that will start burning. They'll start burning through that polystyrene and that decorative trim. Now, what we try to look for as a truck captain, when I'm responding to a strip mall fire, I cannot wait to get on scene because I want to get eyes on that building to see if I have this material on my roof line and make an announcement on scene about emergency traffic, about working in or around that stuff. So
you would transmit an urgent when you discover that type of thing.
Emergency traffic, be aware that this is the type of construction we're dealing with. Stay off the roof. Leave it to the truck company. And because we know about this, we've trained on this, we've inspected a lot of this stuff in our first in, so I'm very aware of this, and we're very careful when working around this stuff. Show me another picture, please, Shannon. This is why I like taking the truck to the Charlie side. All right, this is a strip mall. We have another picture of the strip mall. The whole front of this is covered in this polystyrene wall cap, but if you look at here at the Bravo side, it stops. It stops right there. Bravo side's in pretty good shape. Charlie side's wide open. We have a great alley in the Charlie side to work at. So if I'm on a truck company and I'm responding to a strip mall fire with this material, first plan A for me is get to the Charlie side. Very rarely you're going to find this this material all around the back because they're just trying to save a little money. They don't have to decorate the back of the building with the loading docks and the utilities. All right, so this typically stops on the Alpha Bravo side and the Delta side. So show me another picture, please, Shannon. Is there one? Is that it? All right. I thought I had another picture. But yeah, so be very, very careful when you're dealing with this type of material. And Captain Gustin, you said this is specific to Clark County. This is not specific to Clark County. We have this material all over the South, all over the Southwest, all over the West, and even in Pensacola. When I went down there to Pensacola with you, Cap, we were driving back from the airport. I noticed multiple buildings with this same construction feature on top of it. All right. Sometimes, in rare cases, they do frame that in wood. That wall cap will be framed in wood and then painted, but the majority of the time it is cheaper and it's easier to make this material and attach to the side of the building. You simply, the architect or the builder simply contacts the manufacturer and says, here's the profile I want, here's how many lineal feet I want. They cut it they cut it at the shop and they deliver to them on a pallet. The whole pallet might weigh 60 pounds of material. Drop it right there, take it out of the package, and glue it to the side of the building. So
Can you tell us about how you cut a notch in that?
Yes.
Secure it with a chainsaw.
I haven't tried this yet because I can't find anyone to let me do this to their building. But as soon as someone turns their back, I'm going to do this. So what I've thought of is you go up to the building, right? Somehow access the roof of the building either with a bucket or a ground ladder. All right. Carefully step over that wall cap onto the load-bearing wall, and then use your saw and simply cut through that stuff with your chainsaw. Cut about a 24-inch wide section out of that. Hit it with the hook and knock that section off the side of the building. One strike from the hook will take care of that, and that way you can roll your ground ladder into the notch you made, so the tip of your ground ladder is going to be resting on the load-bearing wall, and then it's also going to keep that tip of that ladder from moving side to side, so you're not going to lose your tip. That's going to create a little notch to keep that tip from moving. So if anyone gets an opportunity to try that, please get some video of it and let me know.
I think your problem is you're asking.
Yes, that's true.
That's how big of a sections do those come in, as far as if you just tried to get a roof hook underneath it or just try to knock off? I mean, are they coming in 16-footers, 8-foot sections?
I've never seen anything as long as 16 foot, and I think that's just for shipping purposes, Sam. They just pallet size is typically what I see, just the size of a pallet. So maybe 6-8 feet is going to be the longest I've ever seen them.
I got a question for you. Have you seen the video, Clark, of because we're talking about taxpayers, from Joe Squarto from Fireline Video, of the taxpayer fire in Queens, where the foam was underneath as exterior foam, EFIS, exterior foam insulating systems?
Yes.
And fire came out of the store, and all of a sudden it heated up to its ignition temperature, and it ran the entire length of the soffit from the foam. And if you were under that, you were cooked. I mean, it was like amazing.
Right.
I'll see if I can get permission maybe next month to use it. But I'll see if I can talk to Joe and see if we can use it.
That'd be great. And Captain Dugan, you don't only have to worry about the lateral fire spread. It melts and it drops down. So
it trips on you, and then it also, depending on how they finish it, if they leave an air channel behind it so it doesn't mold, there's an air channel. If the fire gets behind there, depending on if they leave a full air channel, it can go all the way up and go behind everything and set everything on fire behind you.
Absolutely. It'll burn in the foam behind the stucco and the fiberglass mesh. So it'll burn through the EFIS system. And if you're standing on the street corner looking at it, you're not going to know what's on fire. You're not going to know where that fire is traveling because it's behind the stucco. That fire could be traveling 10 feet away from the original ignition point. And that's what caused the fire spread. This product is what caused the fire spread at the Monte Carlo Hotel. The Monte Carlo Hotel was started by a welder. He was cutting some metal, and the slag dropped off the metal and landed on the EFIS wall, which is the back of the parapet. That fire, and then he hit it with the fire extinguisher, thought he was done. The fire was burning in the polystyrene foam underneath the stucco. It burned up the back of the parapet wall, down the front of the parapet wall, and that's when it took off. And as it was spreading, it was dripping down, and that's how he ended up with fire on the 32nd floor, the 29th floor, the 2nd floor. That fire spread because this material was just burning and dripping off.
Well, that's going to be everybody's homework assignment, including me. I'm going to get out of my territory and take a look at the new buildings or refurbished buildings, which is, they'll do everything but the Charlie side. Clark, you make an excellent point about the Charlie side. Fast food restaurants, sit-down restaurants, typically have a very high parapet wall in the front with a cornice of some type of facade to conceal the air handling equipment and the exhaust equipment for the cooking. We're right up against the end here, Clark. I want to thank you again, Clark, for relating an unpleasant experience for your department, but a proud experience. And if there's any final closing thoughts from you, I'll ask each panelist to close out with some closing thoughts.
Yeah, I know we're running out of time. I just have a couple things to say. I would like to thank all of my brothers and sisters from all over the country and even throughout the world who have contacted myself personally or have contacted us in Las Vegas to make sure not only are we okay physically and our families are okay, then that we weren't affected with the shooting, but also mentally and emotionally okay. I received no less than 100 Facebook messages, emails, text messages every single day for a week with people checking on me from all over the country. So absolutely, I want to thank everyone for that. And I have a real quick funny story. The other day, Wednesday, Mike Pence was coming in town. Vice President Pence was coming in town on Saturday. So they stage his motorcade at Station 11 because it's right across the street from the airport. So we have all the vice presidential Suburbans in Station 11. Got the doors open, Secret Services all over the station. They're telling us about what we can and can't do, how we have to operate in our own station because they've taken over the station. And here comes this guy driving a car right up the apron. He drives right up the apron, and he just happens to be Middle Eastern descent. Strict coincidence. He drives up the apron, and he's got a package. He turns out he's an Amazon driver. He's got a package about 12 by 24. Unlabeled. He gets out of the car and hands it to the other captain who's standing there talking to the Secret Service agent. This guy gets in his car, turns around, and drives away. And the captain and the Secret Service agent are looking at each other holding this package, and it had weight to it. It was a pound. And they're looking at each other, what the hell is this? And the Secret Service agent says, you might as well open it now. So he opens it, and it was Palm Beach County Fire Department sent us a card, condolences card, and sent us a pound of coffee. And that's what it was. Thank you, Palm Beach County, for the coffee and for ruining Secret Service's day. It was worth way more than a pound of coffee. Way more.
That is great.
Thank you, everything.
Captain Mike Dugan, any closing thoughts?
No, after that story, I have nothing to add except I am jealous of that mustache. But God bless the brothers and sisters in Clark County. God bless all of the men and women who were the victims and anybody who was there. We just keep them in our thoughts and prayers.
Sam, any closing thoughts?
No, I appreciate getting to be a part of this. And Clark, seriously, thank you for sharing that. I think if we look back 40, 50 years in the fire department, we didn't share things that happened for fear of looking bad, and we didn't give people the opportunity that they get today to learn from our own events.
And remember, folks, that we have a tragedy unfolding right now in California. I'm very worried about one of our regular panelists, Daryl Liggins. Daryl, if you watch this later, if you're watching it now, get a hold of one of us. We're worried about you. We're worried about your house. I'm sure you're deployed somewhere because I believe you're in the thick of it. So keep those folks, the firefighters and civilians in California, in your thoughts and prayers. Until next month, this is Bill Gustin, the oldest man in the room. May God bless you and keep you safe on our most noble profession.